You put the phone down after 40 minutes and two things are true at the same time. You feel emptied and you feel strangely full. You watched a doctor explain your gut, a stranger renovate a van, 3 seconds of the war, a recipe you will never cook, a man who quit a job, a woman telling you to quit yours. You took in 200 fragments, and right now you could not name one of them. Underneath all of it, there is a low running feeling like an engine that has been revving hard and has not moved an inch. There is a name a whole generation has started using about itself, half as a joke and half as a confession: brain rot. It was named the word of the year. Around 200,000 times a month, someone types that phrase into a search bar looking for what it is or how to stop it. People say it out loud with a small laughter, and under the laugh is a real fear that something inside them is being worn down, that the instrument is dulling and that they are the ones dulling it. I want to say plainly what I think brain rot actually is, because I think the joke and the fear point at the same wrong thing. The real cost of all that scrolling is not that your hardware is rotting. The real cost is where the feed holds you. Every swipe puts you in the moment just before something good arrives, and then it never quite arrives. You live for an hour at a time in the reaching, and the reaching never becomes the getting. That is why you can feel emptied and full at once, full of almost, empty of anything that landed. And if that is what is really happening, then the way out is not a detox. The way out is giving yourself the one thing the feed never gives you. One thing actually finished. This matters now in a way it did not a few years ago, because we have never had a machine this good at holding us in that state. We reach for it before we are awake. We reach for it in the pause between two real things, and more of us have started to feel the residue of it, that specific fog after a long scroll, and we have reached for the darkest available explanation. We tell each other our brains are rotting. It sounds like a joke. For a lot of people, it is the most sincere thing they have said all week. So the easy move is to take the fear at face value, to decide that the feed is genuinely damaging you, that your attention is being destroyed, and that the responsible thing is to panic and detox. And sometimes that is close to true. There is a real science here and it stays on the table, but the damage frame taken whole points you at the wrong repair. Here's the science, as honestly as I can give it to you. In November 2025, the American Psychological Association covered a large meta-analysis, 98,299 participants pooled across 71 separate studies. Heavy use of short-form video, endless vertical feed was associated with measurably poorer attention and weaker inhibitory control. Now, inhibitory control is a piece of jargon worth translating. It is the ability to not do the thing you're being pulled towards, the feel to reach for the phone and not complete it. And the finding is that in heavy users, on average, that ability tests measurably weaker. Now this is where it gets genuinely interesting, and I want to be precise because the precision is the whole point. That study is correlational. It found that heavy scrolling and weaker attention travel together. It did not prove, and by its design could not prove, that one produces the other, which leaves a real question. Maybe the feed erodes your control, or maybe people who already have weaker control are the ones who fall into the feed and cannot climb back out. The data does not tell you which arrow points which way, and the effect sizes are modest, not the total collapse the word rot suggests. Most people hear correlational and relax. See, they say it is not even proven. I read it the opposite way. Because if you genuinely cannot tell which direction the arrow points, the honest possibility is that it points both ways at once. Weaker control pulls you into the feed, and the feed weakens control a little further, and the thing tightens on itself. That is not a comfort in reading. It is a loop. The loop is measuring the wrong thing for what we are actually talking about. It does not measure the thing you feel when you put the phone down, emptied and full. That feeling is not a dollar instrument. It is something the study was never built to see. So I have to leave the ground the data can hold, and I want to tell you honestly when I'm doing it. Here's my reading of what that feeling actually is. There is a long line of research going back decades to Wolfram Schultz's work on dopamine, showing something people usually get backwards. Dopamine does not fire hardest at the reward. It fires at the cue, the prediction, the moment just before. In the animal world, it climbs on the signal that the reward is coming, and it goes quiet when the reward actually arrives. The pull lives in the anticipation, not the payoff. Now, extending that from a monkey and a drop of juice to you and a vertical feed is a leap. I want to name it as a leap rather than smuggle it past you. But if it holds, and I think it plausibly does, then the swipe is engineered to keep you in the anticipation and never quite deliver the payoff, because the anticipation is where the wanting actually is. Every swipe promises the next one will be the one. And notice what that predicts about your own evening. The scroll never has a natural end, because the thing it keeps promising is always one swipe away. There's no moment of arrival built into it at all. My claim is that you live in a perpetual almost. It feels like being close to something, and you're never closer than the last swipe left you. I noticed the same loop in myself in a place I did not expect, and it did not look like memes. It looked respectable. During a stretch when I was trying to get something of my own off the ground, I spent days watching other people who had already built the thing I was trying to build. I read long threads about what works, I saved posts, I took notes. My head filled up and nothing landed. Same loop, better costume, always about to, never arriving. What finally broke it was small and much less impressive. I put a rough, unfinished version of my work in front of a few real people and let them react. And the strange part was not what they said. The strange part was how it felt afterwards. The fog I could never scroll my way out of was simply gone. One finished thing did in an evening what the feed had been promising me for months. Because two very different things feel almost identical from the inside. Reaching for something and actually getting it. Both light you up. Both hold your attention. The difference only shows afterwards. Reaching leaves you hungrier. Getting leaves you done. And the feed has learned to sell you the reaching as if it were the getting hour after hour, because the reaching is the only part it has. And I want to be careful here, because the thing you keep almost reaching is not always small. And I do not want to shrink this. Sometimes the thing you are almost doing is an apology you owe someone who may already be gone. Sometimes it is a life you haven't let yourself begin to rebuild after it collapsed. Sometimes it is grief you keep almost sitting with, and then a swipe arrives, and the almost is easier than the thing. The feed is very good at meeting you in exactly that gap, because the gap in front of something that matters that much is unbearable, and the anticipation of feeling it is more tolerable than the feeling. So when I talk about finishing, I do not only mean shipping. Sometimes the thing that needs to finally arrive is a feeling you have been swiping away from. Now notice what the word rot quietly does to all of this. It carries an implication that the harm is a natural law. Rot runs one direction. Once wood rots, no decision reverses it. If your brain is rotting, the damage is a wall, and there's nothing left to do but slow the decay and more. That is exactly the wrong picture. Some walls in a life are physics, and some are just rules you keep by choice, and the two feel identical from the inside until you test one. The feed is not physics acting on your skull. It is a man-made rule you have been keeping. And the small real thing you keep not doing, you have quietly filed it far higher than it belongs. It helps to sort the weight of things honestly. I unpacked this fully in When High Standards Become a Place to Hide, another video. So here is the short version. Most of what we treat as a heavy must is really a low-cost can. Acting might change something. Not acting changes nothing. Sending the message, finishing the small task, saying the true sentence out loud, that is almost always a can, and you've been carrying it like a must, like something with a lasting price attached. When the truth is you could let it out of your hands tonight and nothing structural in your life would break. So picture an engine. Scrolling is the pedal pressed flat with the transmission in neutral, fuel burning, needle climbing, the sound of tremendous work, and the car does not move a foot. Every video adds RPM, more noise, more spark, more of the feeling of being about to. The engine of your attention runs hotter and hotter. The wheels never turn. And the exit is not more fuel and is not draining the tank either. The exit is the small, unglamorous motion of letting out the clutch, letting one real thing actually happen, all the way to the end. It is far less dramatic than Redline. It is also the only thing in the whole system that produces distance. You feel this every time you finish a long scroll, intending to finally start it. You cannot. It is not that you lack the charge. You have never had more charge. What you cannot seem to do is let out the clutch. The needle is buried and the car sits still, and you read that stillness as a proof that something in you is broken. It is not broken. It is disengaged. Let me be honest about why we stay there, because it is not stupidity, and pretending it would be is its own kind of dishonesty. As long as nothing ever finishes, nothing can ever disappoint you. The message you have not sent can still land perfectly. The evening you have not started can still become anything. The moment something actually completes, it becomes one real thing. And one real thing can be judged, ignored, or plainly wrong. That is a genuine loss, not an imagined one. The endless almost keeps you safe from it. And a detox, a clean 7 days away from the phone, keeps you just as safe from it, because a detox is a cleaner looking version of the same almost. You can spend a whole week disciplined and offline and still let nothing arrive. One honest fence before we go, because not everyone listening is stuck in the almost. Some of you finished constantly. You shipped, you sent, you started for 20 years and it did not produce the peace it was supposed to. It produced a kind of emptiness. If that is you, hear this plainly. The answer is not one more finished thing. For you, finishing has become the way you avoid sitting still. And you are allowed to sit still. A person who has done enough does not owe the world constant motion. Rest is not a failure to accelerate. But for most of you, on most nights, the trap is the opposite one, and I do not want to blur the two. The exit is not consuming less. You can consume less and still let nothing arrive. The exit is one arrival. One real thing carried all the way to done, while it still embarrasses you a little. That is where authorship begins. It is the idea at the center of my book, Master Your Life script. The evening you stop letting the perpetual almost write your script for you. And I want to give you a way to test this rather than just believe it, because a claim you cannot check is not much of a tool. Tonight, pick one thing you can genuinely finish in one sitting. Small counts. Write the short message, clear the one drawer, cook the one recipe you actually saved. Finish it completely and then pay attention to the 10 minutes afterwards. Compare that feeling, honestly, with the feeling of putting the phone down after 40 minutes of scrolling. That comparison is the whole experiment. If I'm right, one of those leaves a fog and one of them clears it. And no study and no video, including this one, can tell you that as convincingly as your own Tuesday evening can. Before you reach for the feed again, and you will, and that is fine, do one small thing first. Not a plan, not a resolution. Open one message right now to one real person with a single sentence about the thing you have been almost doing or the thing you have been almost saying, and send it before you let yourself reread it. That is the entire assignment, and it has a clear end. The moment it says delivered, you are done for tonight. And notice what that little word on the screen actually is. Delivered. Something for once actually arrived. That is the payoff the feed has been dangling in front of you all evening and structurally cannot hand over. 10 real feet tonight is worth more than 100 hours of revving the engine in neutral.